fun එක next level කරන dialogue fan blaster.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Saturday the 21st of December 2024. Stamp of approval. Fitch Ratings upgrades Sri Lanka's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to CCC positive. Secretary to the Treasury meanwhile hails the upgrade as a key economic milestone and says the country officially exited sovereign default. The bond swap. Sri Lanka repays local ISB holders with new rupee bonds. 8 tranches of bonds totaling 155 billion rupees issued. Beyond the horizon. Sri Lanka targets 3 million tourist arrivals next year with an expected revenue of over 5 billion rupees. Marooned. 12 crew members who attempted to traffic Rohingya refugees to Sri Lanka placed in remand custody till the 31st of December.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. Obe Vishwasi Dino Sensodyne, then Lagamati Pharmacy in Labata Hacker.
Kanta Parisankaragatto? Happy Parisan.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasave, Vesat Matui together at Disney.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story this evening. In some very positive economic developments for Sri Lanka, Fitch Ratings has upgraded Sri Lanka's foreign currency rating from restricted default status to CCC positive. The decision follows the acceptance of the restructuring offer by 98% of bondholders who agreed to exchange defaulted bonds for new securities issued on the 20th of December. The rating agency explained that the upgrade reflects Fitch's assessment that Sri Lanka has normalized relations with the majority of its creditors after the announcement of the final results of the invitation to exchange the outstanding stock of international sovereign bonds. However, one bond series, which includes non-aggregated collective action clauses, did not meet the required 75% acceptance threshold. Excluding this bond series, the acceptance results suggest a restructuring of 96% of the total commercial external debt. The series in question is a 2022 bond where Hamilton Reserve, a holdout investor, holds approximately 25% of the outstanding amount. Fitch also upgraded Sri Lanka's local currency issuer default rating to CCC positive from CCC negative, aligning it with the long-term foreign currency rating. This change reflects the reduced risk of another default on local currency debt following the completion of the international sovereign bond restructuring and an improved outlook for macroeconomic indicators. As part of the foreign debt restructuring, the debt exchange will convert 11 international sovereign bonds along with accumulated past due interest into a mix of 4 macro-linked bonds, 1 governance-linked bond and 1 PDI bond. Bondholders will also have the option to choose a local alternative governed by domestic law, which includes rupee-denominated bonds and a US dollar bond with step-up coupon payments. Fitch noted that an increase in government debt to GDP, potentially due to an inability to raise revenue further, could result in a wider budget deficit and a reduced capacity to rebuild foreign exchange reserves.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
Chandurusume Kagin Manape Singer TV Sadha Supiri Deal.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Aspirations Education, a pioneer in overseas education. Meet our experts at top destinations worldwide. Your trusted and caring partner in overseas education.
Now, following the upgrade of ratings by Fitch, Secretary to the Treasury Mahinda Sirivardhana stated that this marks a significant milestone in Sri Lanka's economic recovery as the country has officially exited sovereign default. In a post on X, the Treasury Secretary noted that this achievement comes after a long and difficult journey, which included painful reforms and a complex debt restructuring process. The Secretary to the Treasury, Mahinda Siriwardana, further emphasized that while this rating upgrade is a crucial milestone, it is only the beginning of Sri Lanka's journey towards prosperity. He stressed on the importance of collective effort, stating that everyone must make their utmost contribution. Moreover, Siriwardana cautioned against repeating past policy errors, which often stem from dogmatic beliefs, ideological biases, and false narratives. He warned that such approaches tend to lead to unrealistic and unsustainable policies and added that economic collapse can occur rapidly, but recovery is a slow and painful process. He also highlighted that following the upgrade and improved economic stability, it is now essential to implement measures that will generate further momentum for inclusive and sustainable growth. These measures should focus on creating jobs, increasing income, and improving the living standards of citizens. However, Siriwardana underscored that economic growth should not come at the expense of stability. Reflecting on past experiences, he reminded that whenever Sri Lanka's economy has stabilized after a shock, there has been a tendency to pursue unsustainable fiscal and monetary stimulus in an attempt to reignite growth. This approach has often resulted in a rapid return to instability, contributing to several stop-go cycles in Sri Lanka's post-independence economic history. Siriwardana acknowledged that Sri Lanka's economic policy has been volatile, often shifting from one extreme to another due to political changes. He emphasized that stabilizing public finances is crucial for creating fiscal space for development and meeting commitments to both domestic and international stakeholders. On a positive note, he observed early signs of depoliticization in macroeconomic policy, which could be further entrenched through a robust legal and institutional framework. This includes key pieces of legislation such as the Central Bank of Sri Lanka Act, the Public Financial Management Act, the Public Debt Management Act, and associated institutions. Finally, Siriwardana pointed out that the recent rating upgrade highlights two key issues. First, the economic crisis that began in 2022 was largely caused by poor policy decisions, which could have been avoided or at least mitigated if the warning signs had been heeded and timely action, including early discussions with the IMF, had been taken. Second, while the economy has shown some improvement with debt restructuring completed and a better rating, Sri Lankans continue to feel the lasting impact of the crisis and the tough measures required to address it. Sri Lanka has repaid defaulted local bondholders with floating rate rupee bonds maturing between March 2023 and September 2043 as part of the restructuring of defaulted ISBs, which was completed on the 20th of December. Sri Lanka has issued 8 tranches of bonds of 19.46 billion rupees to local bondholders, totaling 155.7 billion rupees. The local bondholders, mainly banks which had seen bad loans hurting capital, do not face a principal reduction. The bonds will carry a coupon rate 50 basis points above the central bank's standing lending facility rate. The SLF rate used will be the 6-month historical average, calculated 30 days prior to the interest payment date.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
ඩයබටිසෝල් සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
ප්‍රයිම් ගෲප් ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට හඳුන්වා දෙන ලෑන්ඩ් ලීසින් ලේසියෙන් මීටමක්.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire කිසි ගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසි ගින්නක් නෑ. Kalani fire shield wire.
Apiko met real sama sapata nidiyan Apiko Springs are 4 meters madiri rasakin.
Now, meanwhile, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka issued a circular to licensed banks recently highlighting relief measures to be provided to small and medium enterprises affected by the Easter Sunday attacks, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the extraordinary macroeconomic conditions that prevailed in the recent past. These measures have been developed with the Sri Lanka Banks Association and are in line with the Working Committee on Recovery of Loans under the Special Provisions Amendment Act No. 26 of 2024. According to the new relief measures, loans provided to SMEs that have become non-performing loans will be rescheduled based on the borrower's ability to repay and an acceptable business revival plan. The CBSL stated that all rescheduling agreements must be finalized by June 15, 2025. Accordingly, SMEs with loan balances between 25 million rupees must begin repayment by the 31st of December 2025. SMEs with loan balances between 25 million and 50 million rupees must begin repayment by the the 30th of September 2025. Repayment of loans above 50 million rupees must begin by the 30th of June 2025. Additionally, the CBSL claims that SMEs may receive interest waivers on unpaid amounts from April 2019 to December 15, 2024, depending on how quickly the interest is settled. Accordingly, a 65% waiver will be granted for loans between 5 million and 10 million rupees if the interest is settled within 6 months. Similarly, a 50% waiver for the same category if interest is settled within 12 months. Meanwhile, a 40% waiver will be granted if the interest is settled between 1 to 5 years. The CBSL further stated that the banks should not reject new loan applications solely based on adverse crib records. It added that if relief is denied, borrowers should be informed of the reasons and given the option to appeal to the Director of the Financial Consumer Relations Department at the central bank. These relief measures will apply to SME borrowers whose loans became Stage 3 non-performing loans after April 1, 2019. Additionally, the CBSL emphasized that SMEs must engage with their bank's business revival units by March 31, 2025 and submit the required documents to be eligible for relief. Now in more economic updates, during an informative session hosted by the international consultancy firm KPMG, experts scrutinized the President's special remarks made on proposed tax amendments made last Wednesday in Parliament, with particular attention being given to the proposed VAT exemption for locally manufactured liquid milk and yogurt. While addressing the ambiguity over the exemption's application to certain dairy products, Principal for Tax and Regulatory of the KPMG, Suresh Pereira, called on the public to wait patiently till legislation is passed in that regard, since the legislation will eliminate the ambiguity looming over the matter and clarify the government's intention in granting the tax exemption. KPMG Sri Lanka Academy conducted a seminar yesterday dubbed the Roadmap for Reforming Taxes with reference to the President's special address in Parliament this week, where the country's top executive revealed several amendments to Sri Lanka's existing tax legislation. During the seminar, particular attention was given to the proposed VAT exemptions for locally produced milk and locally manufactured yogurt. The proposed exemptions are expected to come into effect from the 1st of April next year.
Key exemption that was introduced. So normally we have from 1st January 2024, we were told no more exemptions and all the exemptions were scrapped for VAT purposes. But now we see a VAT introduction, isn't it? What is the VAT exemption for?
So the speech goes on to say that they've decided, the government has decided to exempt yogurt and other dairy products from value-added tax. So like Rivka correctly pointed out, prior to 1st January 2024, there was a similar exemption in this related to. But after 1st January 2024, most of the exemptions, the VAT exemptions were removed. So now they are introducing again on dairy products and yogurt specifically, but the President's statements goes on to say that to create a nutritious generation, this exemption has been introduced. So that's the rationale for introduced as the President's speech. So they've covered yogurt and they have expanded it to say other dairy products. So maybe cheese could be covered, maybe ghee, those are the products which could be categorized under this. But when you go on to the law, which was previously there, so there was a specific exemption when it comes to supply of locally produced dairy products other than powdered milk contain added sugar or other sweetening matters out of locally produced fresh milk insofar as such milk is produced. So we'll have to wait and see whether this same exemption will be reintroduced. So as per the guidance of President's speech, Rivka. So this was what was there, and when it was removed from 1st January 2024, and now they are intending to bring back the exemption again.
Okay, so I think when you look at the phrases also, Suresh, it says milk products, I think yogurt and milk products as the title, and then goes on to say exemption to be given for yogurt and other dairy products. So now the question is whether the focus was on yogurt or whether there was more items that was intended to. What was the policymaker's intention and how the wording will end up being? Yes, Suresh.
Yeah, so I think we have to understand this statement in the context of what they intended to do. So we need to wait and see how the law will be worded to predict exactly, not predict, basically to see what exactly is the situation. Like rather than trying to point out, will cheese also be exempt? Let's say butter will be exempted, So those are things that we need to wait and see. But how I understand is, President pointed out that relief will be given to the individuals, and it is the response that we see here, basically, the president is saying pay taxes will be reduced, right? But what is happening is for the individual, all individuals, the income taxes being reduced is basically what they are doing, right? What the government is doing. So likewise, again, at the beginning, statement was made due to high VAT in Sri Lanka, the people are suffering. So there will be concessions given with regard to VAT also. So in that backdrop, I believe milk has been selected as the subject as to provide VAT relief. And I think it's from there that we need to read. Looking at these wordings in the statement, it's not the way to decide whether what will be covered, what will not be covered. So let's wait and see what exactly will go into the law. So milk definitely will be locally manufactured, not exposed to VAT. What are the other ones that will come? We have to wait and see when the law is enacted.
Another highlight of the session was a discussion on the simplified value-added tax system and the uncertainty looming over the SVAT scheme.
Right. So then let's move on to another that was the SVAT removal, which was referred to in the president's speech, but it was not clear as to whether this would be continued or whether this would be abolished. Yeah. So SVAT, I think the main thing was there was no indication as such on SVAT whether it would be abolished or whether it will continue. So there still seems to have focused on saying that in the second review this was discussed, part of the IMF discussions that this was discussed, but whether the initial plan to abolish it on 1st of April 2025, whether that we are going ahead with it or whether that will be deferred is something we need to wait and watch.
Meanwhile, the government has set a target of welcoming 3 million tourists next year with an expected revenue of over 5 billion rupees from the tourism sector. Speaking at the Tourism Awards 2024, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Buddhika Hewawasam, highlighted the importance of a robust and consistent mechanism to attract more visitors and showcase Sri Lanka as a top travel destination. Meanwhile, speaking at the same event, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism, Vijitha Herath, reiterated the commitment of the NPP government in implementing policies to promote the country's tourism sector. Organised by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Sri Lanka Tourism Awards 2024 was held last evening in Colombo.
The tourism is regained again in Sri Lanka to the level of 2 million tourists. So within next 3 days of time, probably we will be reached 2 million tourists, and within the end of this year, we will reach 2.1 million tourists and over $3 billion. So we have been targeting 3 million tourists next year with over $5 billion revenue. We will be able to achieve that. For the government side, we have structured our particular tourism industry in a way which support these particular activities of US. So there will be major restructuring of the tourism stakeholders, tourism institutions in the government, just to facilitate the particular tourism industry to boom to that level. Tourism industry all over the world have been reaching far ahead. We need to achieve new targets. We need to achieve new milestones. It can only be achieved with the creativity of the industry and the dedication of the industry, as well as the newcomers and the investors and entrepreneurs and the individuals who has a vision of the particular industry. So the new products will come in place. Colombo city will be bloomed. City tourism is one of the biggest areas that we are looking at. Along with that, all over the country, the tourism economy is what we have been looking at. That means employment of Sri Lanka right now 11% is in the tourism industry. We need to increase it to at least 15 to 16%. Everybody in Sri Lanka has a part to play in tourism.
Looking ahead, our strategic vision focuses on sustainable and inclusive tourism development. We aim to implement policies that promote environmental stewardship, cultural preservation, and community engagement. By fostering partnerships between the public and private sectors, we strive to create a tourism ecosystem that benefits all Sri Lankans. The government's commitment to supporting the tourism sector remains steadfast, with initiatives aimed at enhancing infrastructure, marketing, and human resource development. Together, we can build a resilient, sustainable, and thriving tourism industry that showcases the unparalleled beauty and hospitality of Sri Lanka.
Now, in other local news, the Trincomalee Magistrates Court ordered that the 12 crew members of the fishing trawler from which the Sri Lanka Navy rescued more than 100 Rohingya refugees in the Mullivai, Kaleru and Mullativ be placed in remand custody until the 31st of December. In total, 103 Rohingya refugees, including 25 children who were rescued by the Sri Lanka Navy, were brought to the Trincomalee jetty yesterday. Subsequently, the Trincomalee Magistrates Court ordered the remand of the crew members along with an order to house the remaining refugees at the Mirihana refugee camp. Accordingly, the Burmese refugees were yesterday taken to a refugee camp which was installed at the Trincomalee's Jamalia Muslim Mahavidyalaya. The refugees were taken from Trincomalee to the Mirihana camp earlier today. The most recent incident mirrors one of similar nature in 2022 when the Sri Lankan Navy rescued more than 100 Rohingya refugees off a maritime vessel. On our next segment, we take you through some thoughts shared across the political arena today with a particular focus on the NPP government's management of geopolitical affairs, accountability and the shortage of rice looming over Sri Lankan households.
ඉන්දියාවට ගිහිල්ලා ආපු අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක ජනාධිපතිවරයා කලින් ඉන්දියාව පිළිබඳව දක්වපු මතය 180ක් කරගලා තියෙනවා. චීනේ ගැන අහපුවම නෑ නෑ මම චීනෙත් යනවා කියලා කිව්වා. අපි බලන් ඉන්නවා කොහොමද මේ ලෝක බලවතුන් එක්ක මේගොල්ලෝ තමන්ගේ විදේශ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය ඉස්සරහට අරගෙන යන්නේ කියලා. අපි දකින්නේ මොවුන්ට ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් නැහැ කියන එක.
එඩ්ගා ක්‍රමවේදය එදා ගේනකොට ඒකට ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් විරුද්ධ වුණු අය අද එඩ්ගා එක වැළඳගෙන තියෙනවා. මේ වැළඳ ගැනීමම බොරුවෙන් සමාජගත කිරීමක් නෙවෙයිද කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
විඳපු වරප්‍රසාද අපි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ යම් කොටසක් එලිදරව් කරා. ජනාධිපති අරමුදලේ මුදල් මැති ඇමතිවරු කොහොමද අවභාවිතා කරේ? ඒවා එලිදරව් කරනකොට රිදෙනවා. ඒ රිදෙනකොට තව මේවා ඉස්සරහටත් එලිදරව් වෙයි කියන බය එනවා. සමහරට හොරගම් කරපුවා ආණ්ඩුවට දෙන්න වෙනවා. අන්නේ බිය දැනෙනකොට ඉතින් ওই වගේ ප්‍රශ්න එක්ක ප්‍රශ්න හාල් ප්‍රශ්න පොල් ප්‍රශ්න ටිකක් උලුප්පල ගන්නවා.
වර්තමාන ආණ්ඩුව එදා කියපු දේ නෙවෙයි අද කරන්නේ. ඉතින් මැතිවරණ කාලේ කියපු දේ අද කරන්නේත් නැහැ. අද රටේ ජනතාව විශාල ආර්ථික අර්බුදයකට මුහුණ පාලා තියෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම හාල් ප්‍රශ්නේ ගත්තත් පොල් ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. දැන් ලුණු ප්‍රශ්නෙකුත් ඒ ඇස්සේ ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ආණ්ඩුව උත්සාහ කරනවා වෙන වෙන කාරණා මතු කරලා මේ ජනතාවගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ අට ගන්න.
220ට අපි ආනයනික සහල් විකුණනවා. දේශීය සහල් 230ට විකුණන්න කියලා අපි දීලා තියෙනවා. සහල් වල ඇත්ත හිගයක් රට තුල තිබුණා. ඒතර මේ හිගය ගණනය කරලා තිබුණ සංඛ්‍යාලයකන අනුව ගත්තාම තිබුණේ මෙට්‍රික් ටන් 70000ක් කියලා. නමුත් අපි දැන් 70000ක් ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන රටට.
And now some local news in brief. A bus en route to Hatton met with an unfortunate accident today while it was travelling along the Hatton Kandy Road. The bus carrying 35 passengers veered off the road and toppled down a 20-feet precipice. Police reported that 3 passengers succumbed to injuries sustained during the accident. 30 injured passengers were promptly admitted to the Hatton Base Hospital, while several other passengers who were critically wounded were admitted to the Kandy Teaching Hospital. Another fatal accident which claimed 2 lives was reported earlier today on the Southern Expressway. According to reports, a van travelling on the Southern Expressway rammed into a lorry travelling in front of it. The police suspect that the accident was caused by the driver of the van falling asleep behind the wheel. In the meantime, public health inspectors carried out a special raid in Petta today to inspect the hygiene of restaurants in the area. Public health inspectors discovered that most restaurants in Petta fail to meet the mandated minimum standards of hygiene and sanitary conditions. Inspecting officials issued strict warnings to the owners of such restaurants subsequent to the inspection. Instructions were also given to remove utensils deemed to be unsuitable for food preparation and to take immediate steps to improve sanitation standards. Welcome back. Now, the Sri Lankan ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Omar Lebbe Amir Ajwad, expressed his desire to elevate bilateral relations between Sri Lanka and Saudi Arabia to new heights. He made those remarks during an exclusive interview with the Arab news agency to mark 50 years of diplomatic relationship between Saudi Arabia and Sri Lanka. Highlighting that tourism is a promising area for Sri Lanka, the ambassador reiterated Saudi Arabia's interest in promoting tourism in the country. In commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between Sri Lanka and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sri Lankan ambassador in Riyadh, Omar Lebbe Amir Ajwad, joined an exclusive interview with Arab News.
Saudi Arabia and Sri Lanka are celebrating 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. In fact, Sri Lanka and Saudi Arabia, they have a very long historical background, historical relations.
Highlighting the long-standing relationship between the two countries, the ambassador said that a logo will be unveiled to mark this occasion, which demonstrates the close bilateral relations between the nations. The ambassador noted that events to boost cultural cooperation between the two countries will also be in place. Meanwhile, during the interview, Ajwad added that the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the diplomatic ties will serve as a catalyst to further consolidate the bilateral relations in areas of mutual interest in the coming years. He revealed expectations to convene the first political consultation meeting between the foreign ministries of both countries, finalizing the roadmap for economic cooperation between the Ministry of Economy and Planning of Saudi Arabia and the relevant ministry in Sri Lanka. This will revive the MOU on foreign investment signed this year between Sri Lanka and the Ministry of Investment of Saudi Arabia. He added that the Saudi-Sri Lanka Joint Committee identified at least 63 items of economic cooperation and has also set up an economic roadmap under the framework of the Joint Committee. The ambassador pledged to build on the relations which the two nations have already maintained to elevate it to new heights. Emphasizing Saudi Arabia's broad, diverse assistance to Sri Lanka, Ajwad said that the kingdom has provided assistance to the tune of $455 million to implement over 15 development projects in education, irrigation, agriculture and road networks, including the establishment of the medical faculty at the University of Sabaragamuwa, the development of the Vayama University Township, and the Kurinchankene Bridge project. The Saudi aid agency KS Relief has also implemented 18 projects including shelter, food security and humanitarian operations at a cost of more than $15 million. Broadening horizons, the Sri Lankan ambassador to Saudi Arabia said that the kingdom is working closely on promoting tourism and highlighted the interest in working in the hospitality sector as well. Now in some international business news, Alphabet Incorporated, the parent company of Google, has proposed new limits to revenue sharing agreements with companies including Apple, which make Google's search engine their default on their devices and browsers. The suggestions stem from the US search giant's ongoing antitrust battle over its online search business. In August, US District Judge Amit Mehta ruled that Google illegally crushed its competition in search, a decision the company vowed to appeal. In a legal filing submitted yesterday, Google said it should be allowed to continue entering into those contracts with other companies while widening the options it offers. These options include allowing different default search engines to be assigned to different platforms and browsing modes. The proposals stand in stark contrast to the sweeping remedies suggested last month by US Department of Justice, which recommended that Judge Mehta force the firm to stop entering into revenue-sharing contracts. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.